Look at that. It's already October 2nd, 9 a.m., right on time. Here we are. I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation's capital. Another beautiful Okanagan day. Lots to talk about, but again, the PBO, this is the most I've seen from a PBO in a long time. Reckless spending on a narrow road to hell. How's that? I added the road to hell part there, but he says reckless, you can akin it to reckless driving on a very narrow road with steep cliffs. Eby sends a strong message to Smith. Smith questions Canada in response. The Bloc says, no way. Carney calls for a meeting with NDP. I wonder what that's going to be, eh? Any guesses? Carney, so many Liberal policies at a friction point. And Carney brings in another banker to run a new government agency. Imagine that, another banker. Elon Musk called an idiot by one of your countrymen, a UK MP, basically says that he can't do anything. He's basically an idiot. He must say I got off the phone with AOC there. But all that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. It's Ian and I. We give it to you straight. If you're looking for what the CBC is dishing out, you're not going to get it here. So if you're looking for the CBC, head over there. We don't have their budget either of $1.55 billion. But we make do, I guess. Lots going on, though. You go ahead.
But I'm just saying, I mean, how dare you speak ill of CBC? I've just gone on their website now. Top stories. Top stories section. And the number one story that the whole country needs to know is a comment piece headlined, after losing billions of dollars on Keystone XL and tank cars, Alberta is pursuing another pipeline. Yeah. So there you go. If you want to learn something about Canada, get yourself on CBC.
Anything else there? Any Trump headlines this morning? Because yesterday I had about 6 Trump words in there, but no, this is just bashing Smith. So it's attack Smith this morning. So they got a Smith. Carney and Smith want a new pipeline. Liberal MPs. Yeah, so it's going to be all about beating Smith into the ground, I guess. Not this story, though. This story is the biggest story that should be out there is, again, the interim budget officer, Jason Jacques, last night likened federal spending to reckless driving on a narrow road. And he was testifying at the Senate National Finance Committee. That wasn't in there, was it? Did you see it in there anywhere? And again, this is the thing. Jacques says troubles facing taxpayers unlike anything you've seen in 30 years. This guy's not just, he didn't just start there. He's been there for a long time. And he says cabinet faces very challenging decisions that are going to affect all Canadians, citing promises to control spending while simultaneously subsidizing industries impacted by the trade war. So he says the foot's on the gas, the foot is on the brake, and the hands are on the wheel in the car, and they are hopefully navigating a very narrow road at hundreds of kilometers an hour. And it's a big, big challenge. And he says, I can't think of another time over the past 30 years where a government has said we both need to engage in significant austerity. And I think the Prime Minister used the word austerity and at the same time, significant investment. I don't see the austerity yet. I've heard talk, but the Budget Office last Thursday in an updated economic and fiscal outlook said the 2024 deficit was 30% over at $51 billion, over target by $51 billion. The 2025 deficit is 62% over target, so it's double over target at $68.5 billion.
I mean, I wish he would stop with the metaphors. And he would just actually start speaking in plain economic language and just start saying, what is this going to mean, Jack? Like, just actually explain what it's going to mean, rather than talking about driving along a cliff's edge and things like that. Just say, because anybody that knows anything about economics and particularly sort of state budgets, they know what's coming. They know what the risks are.
I
wish he would say it. I wish he would spell it out,
I did a really good interview yesterday with a guy on economic long wave theory. And he says we're about to enter a winter in Canada here, the economic winter. And our economy has decoupled from the American economy. and it doesn't look good in Canada. And real estate could be like you got to go listen to the interview. The story will go up today, but it's a really good story. So we'll talk about it a lot more tomorrow. But I'm sure one of the journalists will put that story up today. But yeah, it's economic winter. So I mean, what do you do if for a winter if a winter's coming? So then, do you stockpile wood? Like, what does that mean? If you don't like the metaphors, stockpile wood, gather food, get a jacket, all those kinds of things. And I think Jacques here paints a pretty bleak picture, and it doesn't seem like the people in charge are listening. And even more so to this, because the Bloc says they're not going to support this budget. But who did Mark Carney call to have a meeting? Because he needs a few votes, and here it is. Let's listen on this. The NDP again going to be famous, and there you go. Let's listen in.
May said she's meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss the budget. Do you have any meetings with the Prime Minister to discuss the budget?
I'll be meeting with the Prime Minister today, but there's been no firm agenda as to what that meeting's about yet.
The NDP.
Yes, he did.
Anybody didn't say what it was about?
Not in any particular detail, no.
Is it just with you or opposition leaders?
It's just with me.
Why would he want a meeting with you?
Well, you'd have to ask him that, I guess. But
Didn't you say, what do you want to meet me about?
well, we are in a minority parliament, and this government can't get anything passed unless it has the support of one of three parties. And I've said from the beginning, New Democrats may be reduced in number, but we still constitute a balance of power. And if this government wants to get any progressive legislation passed, at some point they're going to have to count on New Democrat votes. I also think it's just good practice in a minority parliament, frankly in a majority parliament, for leaders to talk to one another and have open lines of communication.
You must have a shopping list.
No, we don't have any shopping list. I think I've been very clear since I was appointed leader that we're here to do one thing, and that is to advocate for working people across this country and to press for policies that will bring real relief to working families across the country. There's no secret about that.
So they're ready for the sequel.
And I guess, yeah, I mean, they've got a leadership election going on, but that's going to drag on for ages. And if he leads them as the interim leader into a temporary deal with the Liberals, then he can do that and then, disappear into the sunset and be forgotten about. So then they don't have to suffer the consequences. But I've been saying this for quite a while now. Like this Carney government is extraordinarily weak. It's a very, very fragile government. I almost feel like a moderately strong wind could collapse this government. The fact that they're having now to go over to the rump of the NDP, get on their knees and beg and bribe what's left of the NDP, which was annihilated because of its close relationship with the Liberals during the Trudeau era. That tells you, doesn't it, just how feeble they are. And yet, just last week we had Keir Starmer talking about Mark Carney and the great triumph of the centre left, apparently, as he phrased it. And he was saying, and we had in Canada storming victory by Mark Carney. It's like, no, that's not what a victory looks like. Having to bribe a very sort of obscure fringe party to vote with you just so you can get your budget passed, the most important legislation that any government tables.
Yeah, so the NDP has to balance a couple of things because they don't have official party status, so they can't get into any of the committee hearings, and those are where lots of the investigations go on and the transparency. So they don't have that, so they have to balance that because I think if an election was called, they'd want to see if they could build their party back at least to official party status because that includes funding and a whole bunch of other things. So they were denied that by Mark Carney because they asked for that, and then the same thing goes for their official party status. And now, what are they going to ask for in return, I guess, is the question. And nobody wants to see that movie. What was that terrible movie called where everybody always gets killed in that movie? Final Destination? Yeah, so what are we going to make? Final Destination version 2 here or something?
But what do they think is going to happen? What did the NDP think is going to happen? It didn't work last time. Jagmeet Singh tried to say again and again, it's like, we did this, everyone. We got this, we got, dental care and all these like state handouts. Like we did all this, everybody. But they didn't They weren't rewarded by the voters. Why do they think it's going to work this time?
And then that $10 daycare, which appears to be falling apart as well. Anyway, this is Blanchette saying the budget has no legitimacy and the Bloc unlikely to support it. Again, the Bloc always got its hand out there. But the bigger story, actually, the bigger story is what happened yesterday with Danielle Smith and Eby and all that. And it is like the rubber hitting the road there, meeting the road, and we're really seeing what people are going to say. But let's listen in first to Danielle Smith, what she says here. Do we have that?
The government seems poised today to announce a deal with Enbridge and some other major companies to put forward a pipeline proposal, an oil pipeline. Fortunately for you, I think it's not going to go to Quebec.
Danielle's looking a bit different these days.
Yeah, we got the wrong clip. That's fine. Well, let's this one play out. Let it play out. Let it play. We'll listen to Blanchette.
Let's imagine that Quebec is an independent and free country. We will go on the world stages to say that Alberta is destroying the environment of the whole planet. So I will say the same thing. Either it goes through Quebec or not. The idea of augmenting the volume of oil and gas, which is extracted and then burned and consumed, is irresponsible. I would agree with real measures to help Western Canada to transform, in time, progressively, its economy in order to get all of us out of this economy, which is destroying the planet slowly, but more and more clearly.
Yeah, so the Bloc says it'll block it at all costs. They don't want any pipeline, so that's for the East Coast. Danielle Smith said they're going to put millions of dollars in trying to put together a proposal and attract some investment to get a pipeline built. And then there's this clip on CBC, because this thing is really amped up here. And there's this clip on CBC on, you know, like how do you get people to invest? Because that's what Eby will say later here, tell you that there is no investment. But let's listen in here on CBC here when they talk about this certainty that's required for investment.
I mean, Kate, it's less hypothetical than I think it has been because there is a proponent, but still the route hasn't been determined, though the ambition is the Northwest Coast. It is Prince Rupert, you know, or somewhere around there. But it is still not a perfectly defined project. And there's still, like, there's private companies lining up to advise on it, but not lining up to invest on it, right? Yeah. So it hasn't fundamentally changed that.
Yeah, I think there are a number of projects before the Major Project Office that aren't fully fleshed out proposals.
Sure.
And a lot of what Ottawa has talked about so far, frankly, are supporting proposals that are actually already under development. I think it again comes back to the investment environment that we create here. For example, the LNG project in BC is waiting on a lot of FDI. They want the certainty of the investment environment before making such investments. And when we have arguments playing out like we do right now, with a proposal on paper that might not be hypothetical, but is certainly not a full one, and you're already seeing politicians react in the negative way to even something that isn't fully thought out in the case of Premier Eby in particular. What signal does that send to private capital about the likelihood of doing business here? And that's where I think if it is true that Prime Minister Carney wants to move fast and break things and do things differently, he has an opportunity, not necessarily in accepting this proposal, but going back to the root issues of why that private capital is not coming here. And it's looking at the tanker ban and the environmental assessment bill and the emissions cap and all of these things that Amanda is right weren't allowed under the previous administration that he committed to looking at, and now they're mum on.
But just on that, from David Eby.
And then, of course, David Eby, and this is one of the more fire and brimstone comments from Eby I've seen in a while. Let's listen in to what he says about this.
To put that tanker ban at threat, it's not just a threat to our pristine coast that so many British Columbians, including myself, value, but it is a direct economic threat to the kind of economy that we're trying to build in the country here. And so when I've said, let's cross that bridge when we come to it, we'll see what the Premier comes up with, I'm being polite. I am being polite. There is no project. There is no bridge to cross unless the Albertan government and the federal Canadian government are committing billions of taxpayer dollars to build this project. And if that is the plan, then they should be transparent about it. Don't mistake my politeness for weakness on protecting our economy and our coast.
So I think that's the answer for Danielle Smith there. that he will fight anything other than hydrogen. He named a few other things in this speech he went through, like, like these are things that he will allow to move forward, but definitely not the oil pipeline.
It's almost like, I don't know if you ever met anybody with a phobia, like arachnophobia or something. It's like rationality doesn't come into it. If there's a little house spider on the other side of the room, an arachnophobe will freak out massively, and they will behave almost as if it's a tiger or something like that. And that's just a fault in their brain. Many people have that, snakes, whatever. It's like that, isn't it? It's like oilophobia. They're reacting. Like, I just want to go back to Blanchette, when he was saying that they're going to destroy the planet. Alberta's going to destroy the planet. It's like, he's an arachnophobe looking at a little spider on the other side of the room, isn't he? That is just completely senseless. There's no evidence to support what he said. Obviously, he's not being scrutinized. You'd think he would be by all those eager journalists, all those truth seekers that are there asking him questions. But they just let him say that. They let him utter obnoxiously huge falsehoods, where he's saying this will bring about the destruction of the planet. I can't remember how he phrased it. It's just kind of, what is wrong? What's going on with these people? What is it with oil? It's like this phobia. It's almost like we need a de-radicalization program in Canada. If Canada actually intends to be a serious country with a serious economy, we need to think about instituting a de-radicalization program for these people whose minds have just been completely poisoned and warped by their irrational fear of oil.
Mark Carney's been juggling and kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth when he's kind of trying to put this together. And obviously he must have said something to Danielle Smith earlier on to kind of appease her. But I mean, like I said, the rubber's going to hit the road at some point, or they come to the bridge that they either cross or they don't cross. And David Eby says there is no bridge. And then we have a reaction here from Danielle Smith too, and this is a big reaction from Danielle Smith.
Say this, that if we had been able to redraw the map at the founding of Alberta, maybe we would have drawn it with a little bit of British Columbia so that we had a port. Maybe Port of Prince Rupert would have been part of Alberta as opposed to part of British Columbia. But we didn't have the luxury of doing that. Instead, to make sure that we were a country, we built the Trans-Canada Railroad, we built the Trans-Canada Highway. We've partnered with British Columbia to ensure that their natural gas can make it through Alberta, through a pipeline to get to the U.S. market. And we've wanted to make sure that all of the goods that come into British Columbia, into their ports, have free entry and free access through Alberta. That's the deal that we have. I think that coastal provinces have a special obligation to be generous in making sure that we're creating access to ports for all of our products. I know that Alberta shares that view. I have not publicly opposed any project that has been proposed by any of my premierial counterparts. I'm very supportive of any of their aspirations, and we're going to make sure that we can find areas of common ground. I would say about this project in particular, it was approved. It was going to go ahead, and yet a political decision canceled it. So this was a shovel-ready project some 10 years ago, and now it's a matter of seeing with the technical changes, with some of the advancement technology, with some of the things that we know, about building to the coast, with some of the new expectations about Indigenous equity ownership. Now we're going to see if we can revitalize that and maybe have a shortcut, because it was ready to go just a short time ago. So I will continue, as I said, to work to build the coalition of partners who are going to be on board with this. But this is a Canada project, and this is a test of whether Canada works as a country. Because if we can't build with collaboration of the federal government and between provinces, if it's everybody gets to get their products going to market except Alberta, that's not a country. A country is one where we support each other. And I think Canadians are there, and I hope that we can get more and more politicians to get there too.
There's a couple of key points in there for sure. And, there is Karina Gold's, sometimes you see a glimpse of them when they tell the truth. Karina Gold, remember, she said this famously or infamously a while back, we need to landlock Alberta's resources. And basically that's what David Eby's doing, and that's what Blanchette's doing, and, Mark Carney's trying to dance around it. So she's saying, and also Carney's saying, one economy, not 13 economies. I mean, if Alberta can't, the biggest contributor to Canada's GDP there, if it can't get access to markets, I mean, we basically put ourselves at the mercy of the Americans, which is supposedly a big problem. You know what I mean? This is a tangled web. You talk about spiders, right? And arachnophobia. Like, I mean, look at this tangled web that's been woven. You're saying David Eby out of one side of his mouth and says that Donald Trump and the Americans have, turned their back on Canada and we need to find other markets. Here's Danielle Smith trying to find another market because all our oil, which is a big part of our Canada's GDP, can only go to the U.S. And then on the other side of the equation, Carney says we're going to build Canada into this energy superpower, and then he couches it with clean energy and all these things. But like I said, the rubber about to hit the road, and there's either a bridge to somewhere or a bridge to nowhere. And that, if you listen to what Danielle Smith had to say there, either Canada's a country or it's not.
I actually, I'm amazed that she was as calm as that. Frankly, I sense that if that was my province and that was my livelihood and all the rest, I would just be so furious. I'd be so angry all the time. But somehow I don't know what she's doing. Maybe she's on some kind of tranquilizer or something. But she always seems pretty chilled out. A lot calmer than David Eby, for example, who talks about the pristine coast that he's probably never been to in northern BC. But yeah, I agree with her completely when she says this is a test of whether Canada works as a country. Yeah. And that's like worth the $14 million by itself, isn't it? It's like a test. It's a test case. And she knows, anybody that's watching knows that if Canada fails this test, there's a very real prospect that Alberta will go away. And so I also wanted to say, sorry, you said about Trump turning his back on Canada. Let's not forget that Joe Biden also turned his back on Canada when he killed the Keystone XL pipeline. But nobody seems to care about that, except maybe Danielle Smith. But that was like a huge sabotage of Canada's economy. Joe Biden did that. The great and holy Joe Biden that we're supposed to look back on fondly.
Yeah, it's the sad thing is the majority of Canadians, I think over 70% of Canadians want this oil pipeline. And that's been poll after poll. And the other thing is we have a minority that's really kind of, making decisions for Canada. And that's been happening for 10 years where whether that's the NDP or the Greens, and in BC, the Green, you know what I mean? Like really dictating policy for the rest of Canada. And somebody put it in the post here, maybe BC needs to separate from the Lower Mainland because that's kind of the voting block that Eby relies on, because the rest of British Columbia would want this pipeline in a minute.
Yeah, and the rest of British Columbia very, very nearly got its guy in Victoria in power. Just by a whisker. David Eby is in power now. We have to remember that. I mean, it seems like he's going to be in power for a lot longer as the BC Conservatives destroy themselves with enthusiasm.
I think one of the cards that Danielle Smith alludes to in some of her talks there is that she's going to, get the Indigenous communities to be on side for this pipeline, and then it's going to be tougher and tougher for Eby and for Carney to kibosh this. I mean, obviously going west is the easiest route, and that's where a bigger part of that market is in, Southeast Asia for the oil. I mean, instead of going all the way across the country.
But those coastal First Nations have come out, like basically everybody that can get close to a microphone and belongs to those First Nations on the coast has come out and said, absolutely no way. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you do. This is never going to happen. And that's where I go back to Danielle Smith. This is a test of whether Canada actually is a country or not. Because a country can see a special interest group say, no, thank you, or local residents, whatever you want to call these people, say, no, thank you, I don't want this project. In a real country, the central authority then says, okay, noted, but it's going to happen anyway because it's too important. So we're going to build this thing. If that doesn't happen in this case, and if a tiny minority of people who complain get their way and block something again of such importance, then it's going to feel like, for federalists, for nationalists, people who really believe in the Canadian idea or whatever, it's going to be a very, very sad day because it's not going to look like a feasible country anymore. And I don't think at this point, after all of the calamities of recent years, usually related to either Alberta or Quebec, I don't think people are going to swallow it anymore. I think it really is separation then really is on the cards.
If you're new here and you're used to getting information for CBC and CTV and this sounds completely different, you maybe want to question what you're watching. Because again, if you go on CBC like we did this morning, we did that yesterday morning as well, that you see the stories they're trying to feed you instead of some of the most important stories that are out there. The budget is one of the most important stories. And how this government even got away with not tabling a budget for how long? When's the last time we had a budget? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's unbelievable. And we're only going to sit in Parliament for what, 73 days for the whole year? That's this government? Absolutely crazy. Here's Tim Hodgson here. Saying that there's a Norwegian company. Look at Norway. You know, they're all about oil and gas. They've got a sovereign wealth fund over $300,000 per capita that they've stockpiled selling oil and gas to whoever buy it. And they're saying, well, if you don't want to sell your own LNG, why don't you let us come there and build a plant? So this is a Norwegian firm approached the federal government with a plan to build an LNG facility in Quebec designed to sell substantial volumes to Europe. The Liberals have said little about the project on an official level. So again, here's Norway saying, you don't want to sell it, why don't you let us sell it? It's almost like dystopian. It's like self-harm over and over and over again. Norway,
but it's also the Europeans, our best mates, I thought. The Europeans are our closest and most treasured friends. They are begging for this. They're on their knees begging. They're saying, please let us do this. We don't want blackouts. We don't want our economy to be destroyed. And we don't want Russia to slap us all over the place because they have all the gas and all the energy. Please give it to us. And then we have people like the Blanchette coming out and just being like, I don't know. It's kind of, what's wrong with you? Do you not have any solidarity with anyone else? Supposedly our friends as well. It makes one's mind explode. When I look at it, I struggle. And also, you mentioned Norway. Norway is like the perfect example of a country that Canada could sort of imitate because their domestic power is mostly sourced by hydro. They sell all their fossil fuels to other people while they power their own economy with clean energy. And as you've said many times, huge uptake of EVs and things like that, and electrification.
90% of all new car sales, and it has been for a while in Norway, are EVs. But they didn't jam it down your throat. But then again, they sell oil and gas to everybody that will buy it. So that they can stock it away
they're also
in their bank account.
They're important. Norway is a tiny country. It's got a population smaller than the GTA. But it's a very important country because it's there with its energy. And Europe, in its time of need, turned to Norway, and Norway was there for them. That's power. So its foreign ministers can go around capitals of the West and be listened to and respected. We have Anita Anand as our equivalent. I mean, you can make your own mind up about whether people respect her.
Yeah, and here again, another one that is just ludicrous. We've done so many stories on forestry. You can go back and read on Kelowna Now and Now Media. You can go read the stories we've done on forestry, including interviewing the former Forest Minister, Bruce Ralston, and the current, he wasn't Forest Minister. We've interviewed Ravi Kahlon. We've interviewed David Eby on forestry. We've interviewed mill owners or VPs of mill owners. And this has been a problem in British Columbia for a long time. The common denominator is that they can't get access to fiber. Eby said he even recognizes that, and that they created this committee to look at the problem, and then the committee or the industry said there's not enough representation for industry, and it's a common theme with the NDP. But now he's coming out. He says it's an economic assault. BC Premier Forest Minister slams Trump's ludicrous 45% tariffs. These tariffs have been on there for a long time. He added another 10. The softwood lumber tariffs have been there for a while. And that's, like you say, if Joe Biden, this goes way back to Kretchen on softwood lumber duties and that. But Trump added another 10% on it. So it makes it really tough, right? Like for the lumber industries. But it's already been really, really tough. We've created, I interviewed also the current finance minister, Brenda Bailey, and asked her about forestry because I looked at their jobs and innovation plan, like their last year's plan, and I said forestry is not mentioned in here, like sawmills and that. And she said, well, we're looking for more value-added projects or products. And I said, well, isn't a sawmill, they sell 2x4s that go into the wall. What more finishing do you need on a 2x4? Do you know what I mean? Like they're talking about mass timber and they're going to focus on that. Canfor said that when they kiboshed their plant in Houston, they said that BC has no certainty and it's not investable. They said that. And then they closed Bear Lake, and then they shuttered shifts. Same to the AP planers, can't get access to fiber. And here is the scapegoat shows up, and what do? They waste no time to blame the whole forest industry debacle on Trump.
And also, in this press conference where he made these claims, both David Eby and Ravi Parmar, who you've interviewed as well, haven't you? Before, I believe that was before he was the forest minister. But yeah, he also brought Russia into it. So it was like a perfect sort of collection of boogeymen. But both Ravi and David Eby said, America has to choose. Is it gonna deal with Russia or is it gonna deal with British Columbia? I just thought that was quite an interesting ultimatum.
And Eby says this: BC will stand with our forestry workers at the same time we diversify our economy. Where? Like, I've interviewed Rustad, says that the forest industry, this is a year ago, it's in like disarray, and Kevin Falcon said it's like just, like it's devastating. There's a whole bunch of words. You can go read all those stories. We've done ton, including Eby himself said there's problems. We can't get permits. There's a documentary out there from Merit that they can't even get permits to cut down burnt wood, and you only got about a year to cut that stuff down. They can't even get permits for that.
Yeah, somebody points out here.
All of a sudden, the straw man shows up, and then it's all Trump's fault. The forest industry is all. I've done interviews with Kofi as well, and saying, we lost 10,000 jobs in forestry, I think, in a couple of years. This is a year ago, way before Trump.
I think it was even more than that, wasn't it? It's been going on so long. Yeah. But somebody's pointed out on YouTube here about the wood or the pellets being sold to the UK. Just think about that for a second. How stupid that is. They cut down trees, turn them into pellets, ship them over. I mean, from the Pacific coast.
Yeah.
I assume. Then they go. Do they go through the Panama Canal? I don't actually know what the route is, but then they take them to the UK, and then in it's Yorkshire, I believe, they burn them, and then they say this is clean fuel, this is clean energy. This is how stupid these people are. You just have to think about that for a second. They might dress it up in all kinds of pretty language, but that's how dumb these people are. That's how stupid the people are that run Canada and the UK. It's just like it shatters the mind.
There's a reason they don't let independent outlets like ourselves at most of these press conferences, and they take their questions from the CBC and CTV. Is because they're not sure what question they're going to get asked, because we have so much information on forestry. Like, we know, like, this has been a disaster for British Columbia for a long time. But all of a sudden, the straw man shows up, and let's blame Trump for everything without looking in the mirror.
And Biden was a saint, apparently, even though he was of the same opinion as Trump in this sector.
Here's another policy. Even when I interviewed Eby, said that he called the liberal immigration policy daft. And now even legal immigrants say Canada's let in too many immigrants. I mean, this is a no shit Sherlock one, right? Whoops. It's just that obvious. So this is another liberal policy that is meeting friction from almost everybody, yet they continue down the path. Foreigners and focus groups rejected cabinet claims that record high immigration quotas were required to ease labor shortages. Right, with a 20% unemployment rate in some parts of Canada for youth. Right? Asked to describe how they felt about Canada's immigration system, many were of the impression that it had become increasingly strained as of late. The view was expressed that due to higher rates of immigration in recent years, the immigration system had become overburdened and led to lengthier processing times for immigration. I mean, we've said it, like, what did we say? They called you a racist if you dared say it before, but now the immigrants are saying it. Stress is housing, stress is healthcare.
Why this should be so hard for people to get their heads around?
Kind of common sense.
People come to Canada from other countries because they want a better life. They don't come from those countries to come to Canada to see Canada's standard of living decline to the same level as their home country, obviously. So yeah, they're going to be upset about it.
Yeah, one of the questions to Carney there, would you say the immigration system in Canada went off the rails in the last 7 or 8 years? And Carney says, yes, the system isn't working. But have they done anything about it? Like, have we really seen a big slowdown, right? You know what I mean? Like, our colleges were living off of it as well, right? We did that story yesterday. The colleges,
I mean, the whole economy was living off it, really. I mean, the housing market was pumped up because of it. Obviously, big employers, the biggest companies in Canada, loved it. They absolutely loved it because they got to pick and choose between so many workers and offer them garbage salaries, and they just had to take it because there was so many people. I mean, this has been it's been like adrenaline injected into the veins of certain sectors of the economy, but we now are the rest of the body, and we have to pay for these adrenaline shots. We have to, seek urgent treatment.
So again, if you just underneath say where it says immigration's too much, you just put the liberal slogan underneath that, for the benefit of the few at the expense of the many, and then you'll say, oh yeah, that kind of fits, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the many includes the immigrants themselves, the actual people themselves who've come here and ended up suffering. And that is something that not many people seem to point out. I know the UN pointed that out, but it's quite important to remember.
And this is what Cabinet's proposing. Last October, they tabled an immigration level plan that's supposed to cut quotas from new landed immigrants from 471,550 to 395, and then to 380, and then 365 in 2027. But I mean, then people fit under different things that we've talked about, asylum seekers and all kinds of other things, and the number just seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
And that's also not a serious reduction anyway, is it? The people demanded a significant reduction, and what they got was a little tinkering around the edges.
Yeah.
And then on the temporary foreign workers, that it would go down from 7.1% of the whole population to 5%. Right. Again, these are tiny tweaks. The Canadian people, in my view, and certainly polls seem to agree with me, they want a really big change. They want a really noticeable and significant change to the immigration system, but as usual, they're not being given that.
Oh, this is another one from Blacklock's. Joel Lightbound, Public Works Minister. He's kind of like one of the MPs I did like, Liberal MPs, when he broke from the liberal messaging last time with Trudeau on COVID, when he said this is enough of these lockdowns, and then he got, severely talked to be put back in line. But he's now in the Public Works Minister, and yesterday he told Canada Post manager to cut the fat. They only lose $10 million a day of taxpayer money, and he said, I expect management to do its job and come back with a serious plan to cut the fat in terms of management. Like a lot of that is we've seen that. How many salaries did we talk about that everybody can kind of guess? Most of these people making $500,000 a year, plus 30% bonuses, plus travel, plus, right? So he said he asked Canada Post to review its management structure because the unions don't want to budge. So he's asked them to kind of like look at that. These things get just so bloated in management, right? We see that everywhere. We see this even locally in Interior Health. You just see this bloat happening in this. Everybody wants to appoint everybody, and nobody wants to give up the fatted calf, I guess, right?
Somebody's just pointed out here on YouTube that about immigration being down this year. Just keep an eye on those statistics as well. The figure that you're usually given is net. You have to bear that in mind. And net doesn't quite tell the whole story, but you need to keep an eye on the figures. It's not just about this last 6 months. That's what we have the data on, or from January to July, or January to June. That's what the data is right now. But just keep an eye on them, because in terms of permits being handed out, not really much has changed.
Yeah, and there's a lightning rod guy. He seems to be one of these liberal guys that wants to just kind of like beat us up. I do know a lot about forestry. We've done tons of stories on forestry. I also worked in the forestry sector for 10 years. So, there's that, right? So I have lots of friends that are still in forestry. Well, a lot of them that are laid off as well. Many of them laid off that dedicated their lives to forestry. But hey. This is one of the ones that the NDP and the Liberals claimed a lot of credit for, the $10 a day daycare. A lot of people say they can't get access to it. Now Ontario is facing a $2 billion funding shortfall, putting the $10 a day daycare program at risk.
Putting it at risk? Did it ever exist in the first place?
Well, it
Let's be
existed
honest.
for a few, right? I mean, it's hard to get, right? You have a couple of kids. Did you get access to it?
No, and I don't know anybody that did. Because a lot of the daycares don't, because they have to sign up to it. And a lot of the time they don't do it because it's just not worth it. It's not worth it to them to go through the fuss of doing that. I mean, I'm sure that there must be some people out there who are benefiting from it, and I'm happy for them because it's incredibly difficult to have kids nowadays. But still, I mean, just in terms of like from an administrative perspective, I don't think that this has really been much of a success, has it? Overall.
Yeah, but who's winning in all this? The government workers enjoying higher wages, retiring early, have better pensions. So this is from the Fraser Institute here. So 4.8% more in wages and salaries on average, 2.2 years in earlier retirement, 6.4 more missed days of work, 5 times fewer job losses. So yeah, so it used to be like, I would say, when I was graduating from college there, that there's a lot of people that were going through the government program, and the government was cutting like crazy, especially in Alberta. That was Rolf Klein and that. And it wasn't good to have a government job. But now it seems like that's the job to get. Like we see in BC, government is bloated. Look at under the Liberal government, we've seen nothing. But then most of the job growth in British Columbia is government. And then we've seen that in the public sector. Most of that has been the public sector at the expense of obviously the private sector who has to pay the bills, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth emphasizing, isn't it, that the private sector pays the salaries not just of the private sector, but also of the public sector. So they're paying the salaries of people that retire earlier, have better pensions, get more money, spend less time at work, and have better job security. I mean, it's crazy. You don't want a country and an economy where the great prize in the job market is to be a bureaucrat for the government. You don't want to live in that economy. You do not want that, because that means that your private sector is just stagnant, or it's underachieving at the least. It's a sign of sickness, of economic sickness. Yeah. And again, I mean, I say this a lot, and it's quite depressing. But does anybody actually really care? I don't know. I mean, maybe they do care, but they're not making a noise about it. So this will continue. And you see people, like really ambitious kids, like in their early 20s, who've just left university or something, and all they want to do is go and work for the government. It's kind of like, come on, can you not do something a bit more like, especially if you're quite talented, you're quite sort of like smart. Why do you just want to work for the government? But then the answer is obvious, because they want high wages and they want job security.
So this guy put out another thing on forestry. Yeah, if you go read the Kofi report, this is about a year ago, this report came out, 10,000 job losses in forestry. You know that every town other than Lower Mainland, it was created either because of a mill or a mine, right? BC our forestry and mining were the 2 biggest contributors to British Columbia's GDP. Forestry is in shambles. There is no doubt about it. The mill here in Kelowna, gone. Tolko, gone, right? Merritt had several mills, gone. I mean, I could go through communities, gone. It takes 20 years to get a mine permitted here. You know what I mean? Like this is how we pay for stuff. This is how we pay for our hospitals. This is how we pay for everything.
Yeah, I mean, you have to consider as well the value of exports, because we need US dollars basically, don't we? Like, just to summarize it, we need to acquire foreign currency to buy stuff, because we buy lots of stuff from around the world, particularly from the United States. Yeah. You don't earn these dollars from the public sector, or from really sort of non-export intensive industries. You need things like that. You need things like forestry, but sometimes it feels like people look down on it, if anything, and it's kind of it's something to be ashamed of.
But if you think about Canfor was a BC-born company, Canadian Forest Products, and they say BC is uninvestable. It's not that they're not doing forestry anymore. They're just doing it elsewhere. They're doing it elsewhere. And then when I interviewed, the ministers there for British Columbia, and they said, "Yo, it's bad, Jim, everywhere for forestry." And I said, "It's not bad in Alberta. Same trees." Weird, no? Anyway. And this Liberal government doesn't like a free media because of Bill C-18, doesn't like accountability. They tried to block how many scandals are still with no documents provided. And the current one that's going on, right? The BC Ferries one. But they tried to do something else here, an internal federal complaint line intended to stem whistleblower leaks. So they didn't want the whistleblowers going to the media. They said, well, you can report these internally. Isn't that convenient, eh? So they want to make sure that the whistleblowers that want to complain about their departments come straight to the government to complain. Isn't that convenient, eh? So just stop going to the media and airing the laundry out there. So they created this department so that people could raise their anonymous grievances instead of going to reporters. They received 24 messages, only 3 of which were considered appropriate for onward transmission to the deputy minister. The rest were rejected for either being out of scope. They don't even listen internally, right? Being out of scope. No, we don't hear that, right? So
I'm disappointed that Blacklock's, they usually have information about who's in charge of these things, and then they list the salary. I'm disappointed that they haven't got it this time. But I'm just going to guess, in the absence of evidence, I'm just going to guess that it's about $500,000.
take a stab at it. And then, so they are talking, and again, this is where the NDP used to shut all this down. So they are in, an investigation. Ethics investigation reveals Carney hiding instruments. You got to listen to this, though. Like, listen in here on this MP.
Fed, he is entitled to carried interest payments, aka future bonus pay, in respect of the performance of Brookfield's global transition funds, in which he co-led efforts to raise billions of dollars of capital for. But what is missing from Mr. Carney's disclosure are the holdings in this fund, of the companies that this fund is invested in. Would you agree that this is a significant and material omission from the standpoint of knowing the extent of Mr. Carney's conflicts of interest?
Yes, and unfortunately, though, the disclosure rules allow for secret investments, essentially. The details are not provided.
It's a material omission, would you agree? Because Mr. Carney handpicked the holdings in the companies that the fund is invested in, and therefore the companies his future performance pay worth potentially tens of millions of dollars is tied to, correct?
Yes, so when you have these kind of general funds, which again, it's legal to invest in some of them and keep it secret, some types of mutual funds, the details of what you're actually invested in is known to you, but not disclosed to the public.
So Mr. Carney therefore knows which public policy decisions will impact these holdings, which in turn impacts the future performance of the fund, which in turn affects the value of his future bonus pay. Meanwhile, Canadians are left in the dark. So Mr. Carney, as it pertains to his future bonus pay, is hiding his conflicts of interest from Canadians, isn't he?
Yes, again, that's legal to do, and what's even worse, because of another, the biggest loophole in the Act, he is allowed to participate in decisions 99% of the time that affect his investments.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that you can't get away with as a councillor in a city or a small town or something. You can't get away with that. And yet the Prime Minister can. And once again, it's thumbs up from everyone that counts, isn't it?
This is the last comment I'm going to do for this lightning round, but it's funny. He says, like, when I said they're the same trees between BC and Alberta, he said they're not the same trees. Well, actually, they're not the same because they'd have to be different trees. But I worked in the mill in Midway, BC for several years, and I also worked in Canfor, the mill in high-level Alberta. They are not the same trees. They're similar trees. Yes, BC has some cedar, but that's not what we ran in Midway. We ran just basically spruce. And that's what we ran in high level, right? The biggest log yard, high level had the biggest log yard in Canada, that mill up there, the biggest log yard. So I do understand how trees work. So, the border, you think that there's a border and then on one side of the border and the other side of the border, the tree's like, you can't be the same tree on either side of that border.
No tree immigration allowed.
No blowing seeds this way or that way, right? Because there is a difference there. Yeah, so there's old growth forest on the island, which is different, but that's not a lot of stuff that's being cut down. The mill in Merritt, the mill here in Kelowna, the mill in Enderby, the mill in Prince George, all these different mills are basically, like spruce and that too, right? And different type, maybe jack or where, different things, but stop being like ridiculous, by the way. But the government of Canada focused on rebuilding, rearming, reinvesting in the Canadian forces. The new department investment agency will streamline defense procurement, create new jobs, strengthen our national security, and defense partnerships with allies. So we've got a new defense investment agency. Just what we need. Another $500,000 salary, right? Just what we need. Another 500. I thought Stephen Fuhrer was running up this department, but no. To spearhead this mission, Prime Minister Carney announced the appointment of Doug Guzman. Guess where Doug comes from? Don't take a stab at it. He's going to be the Chief Executive Officer, CEO yet. That's going to come with at least a $500,000 salary, I would think. Nice title, having the most recently served as Deputy Chair at the Royal Bank of Canada. There you go. Guzman brings
he's not going to need the money, is he? It's quite ridiculous, but he will be on a fat salary, I'm sure.
Well, just think of all the expenses, too. Guzman brings 3 decades of experience in investment and finance, including leadership roles at RBC and Goldman Sachs. Oh, Goldman Sachs.
We know somebody that worked for Goldman Sachs, don't we? Mark, what's his name? Mark Carney, I think.
There you go. And this is a quote from Doug here. This is a tremendous opportunity for partnership between government and business. All at once, we can drive investments, strengthen our national security, and meet our international commitments. We will bring speed and simplicity to the process of arming our military while building Canada's industrial capacity. Proud to have the opportunity to serve Canada at this important time. Okay.
Big Doug. I'm going to take a very brief holiday from my cynicism here, just to say it could be worse. Like, generally speaking, high flyers in finance are very, very competent, aren't they? They're very high ability people in general. So at least it's from finance, and it's not from, I don't know, HR or whatever the hell, like some kind of Trudeau style appointment.
I would say this to you, and I've said this many times. Tim Hodgson is one of the serious guys, like a serious guy that is in the Liberal MP. One of the only serious guys other than Carney. I would say Carney's a serious guy too. He just talks out of both sides of his mouth. But Carney's a serious guy. He's intelligent, serious guy. Tim Hodgson's serious guy, and I would have to guess that Doug Guzman, that being with the Royal Bank for that many years, is likely a serious guy as well. But you know what I mean? Like the ties, though, are kind of like troubling because, again, this is, there is some links there. Doug also was part of this Ivy Business School, and he named Mark Carney Business Leader of the Year in 2024. So Mark Carney got an award from Doug there because Doug was the co-chair of the award committee and publicly praised Carney in the school's announcement. There you go. And they've also shared some public appearances. Guzman and Carney both headlined the Responsible Investment Association 2021. These guys are going to be all on this, what did Carney run, that net zero alliance that all
Glasgow,
the banks, all this net zero stuff. So this guy's going to come from that affiliation as well. So he's bringing in people that are speaking his language. But again, this guy is likely to be a serious guy.
But yeah, you can't... I agree with what you said there. You can't ignore the fact that he is basically getting people from his sort of network, isn't he, and his kind of chums, and he's going to be accused of cronyism for this kind of thing. But at the same time, maybe I'm just like I'm such a doomer that I'll take it. I'll take it. It's better than because I just assume that there's always going to be cronyism. They're always going to bring in their friends and people from their network. Just better that it's somebody from Goldman Sachs and RBC rather than somebody who ran, Deloitte's HR department or something.
Let's put it this way. I'll take 10 Doug Guzmans over another Stephen Guilbeault, Melanie Joly, Chrystia Freeland.
Well, that's why he has to get these people, because he can't give it to the ministers, can he? Because it's people like that, and they'll screw it up. So he has to look for someone else that'll actually, do the job.
Here's an MP, Stephanie Kuzy there, talking about Calgary getting the shaft. Listen to what she has to say about Brookfield here.
This week, Imperial Oil announced it will lay off 20% of its workforce and relocate its headquarters out of Calgary. The Stampede City gets the shaft again. This Prime Minister has the power to eliminate C-48, C-69, the emissions cap, and the industrial carbon tax, but he doesn't care about the average Canadian. He doesn't have to tell his family. He doesn't know how they will pay the mortgage or put groceries on the table. To add insult to injury, it is rumored that Imperial's headquarters is being sold off to none other than Brookfield. So not only did this Prime Minister cause this demise, he could be profiting from it. The truth comes out. This Prime Minister doesn't give a rip about Calgary, doesn't give a rip about Alberta, or for that matter, Canada. The bad news for him is that I and my Conservative colleagues still do. And we will not retreat until the promise of Canada is restored.
She's got a little
She's
animated.
full of beans.
She's got a little animated there, hey? Reminds us of that
Yeah.
MP from yesterday from England there. Only 2 words.
Yeah. Ed Miliband. We should have watched the end of that because it got even worse.
Oh, I got a clip here for you today. I got a surprise here. I got another one. It might be the same dude. Here's a Melanie Jolie, because you got to put the best out there. This is Melanie Jolie telling you what this is where they gaslight us. This is where it's just hard to listen to. Let's roll it for Melanie here.
Speaker, interest rates are down, and when you look at it, wages are growing higher than inflation as we speak. And meanwhile, CPPIB CEO says that the world's largest investors are focusing on Canada. Mr. Speaker, what are we doing? We're building national major projects. We're making sure also to launch a new defense and industrial strategy. We'll create jobs in this country, and meanwhile, the opposition needs to come on board to make sure that Canadians benefit from it as well. Mr.
I would say right now, if that was said in the United States, the first word out of a reporter when she got out of there, they would ask, all these investors are coming to Canada. Where are they? Name some. Can you name some? Like when Trump does those announcements, he has like 7 of them standing beside him. Here's Zuckerberg, here's Bezos, here's the guy from Oracle, Ellison, here's all these guys. Remember the table he showed? Did you see that table? Remember that meeting he had there at the White House just recently? Sitting at the table was the head of Google, the head of Microsoft, the head of Facebook. I could go on and on and on. There was how many people at that table? 40 people at that table? All industry leaders, Melanie. You say these things, show us the beef. Show us. Show us. Show us. Because I don't see them. You don't talk about them because wouldn't they be in a press conference talking about it? But I don't see it. You see it?
Well, the last time I can remember, a big one, was the head of Honda, or at least Honda North America, or whatever it was.
3 years ago?
Being told, and shaking hands, being told that he's going to get billions of dollars in subsidies for a car project, a car plant that has since collapsed.
How many, like just in comparison, all the people losing their mind about Trump, how many of those meetings that Trump has with some of the biggest leaders, including Pfizer yesterday, how many of those people are getting handouts from the government, or how many are investing in the United States? Ask yourself that question. Did you hear Mark Zuckerberg ask for a handout? No. Did you hear Apple ask for a handout? No. Trump said you either build your stuff here, and where they're committing like $500 billion to the United States, building a plant. Because they were building those plants. Apple wasn't building anything in the United States. They were sending it all overseas, right? Everything was being by Foxconn in China.
Well, India was their great, the great future for Apple, wasn't it? That's what they kept saying. I don't think that's quite true anymore. But yeah, that's the power of the presidency, isn't it? They can really frighten these big countries, and he did frighten Tim Cook, Tim Apple, didn't he? Because he said, if you do this, I'll put tariffs on your product if you go overseas.
Look what he did to Pfizer yesterday. They were standing there with Pfizer. Pfizer committed to doing huge investment in the United States. And, people talked about in Canada how that was a terrible thing because we're going to lose some production and Pfizer's stock would go down. Guess what stock? Guess where Pfizer is today? Up. Up.
Good times for Pfizer.
And this is what we get in Canada. The CBC loves to give this lady the microphone. Here you go again. Let's listen in on Elizabeth May. We give her the microphone too.
Just to say, there's no way that any fossil fuel infrastructure is permitted in the world today, given the decisions of the International Criminal Court about responsibility of states due to climate crisis. Under the Paris Accord, our targets are legally binding. It is inconsistent with any commitment to climate action to build any new fossil fuel infrastructure. The World Bank, International Monetary Fund, the International Energy Agency, as well as, of course, the IPCC. C'est clair. Et j'espère que, just to say, there's.
I'm very sorry to admit and embarrassed that she worked her spell on me, and I just sort of zoned out. I don't even know what she said. It's very hard to listen to.
She's saying we're maxed out on our carbon there, so apparently we can get sued for it because we're breaking the law, but apparently America can't, or China, India.
She also said at this same press conference, I think, that she doesn't like the ostriches in BC because the MAGA people it's like that's funny. I would have listened if it was that clip, but I don't know. I can't be the only person that zones out when people like that start speaking. It's just we talk about yesterday's men. This is yesterday's woman, isn't it? With yesterday's ideas. And I'm sorry, Liz, but I have the feeling that nobody is listening. Nobody's listening anymore. You need a new agenda. You need something new to get people's attention. Maybe ostriches.
Yeah.
Do that full time.
It's just ridiculous. See, this is again, it's an attack on MAGA. But look at this. This is an example. Pfizer was Pfizer stock jumped 7.2% in the afternoon session after the company announced a landmark agreement with the United States government aimed at lowering prescription drugs for American patients. Look at that. They're lowering the cost, and their stock jumps, right? And they're promising to do a lot more production in the United States. Win-win deals, right?
Yeah, well, Lightning Rod here. He's a real lightning rod, this guy. Very good name. He's talking about all the money that the US government invests in its big companies. And that is true. Certainly Tesla, he mentioned Tesla. And another one is SpaceX.
Yeah.
But still, come on, it's not quite the way he's talking about it there, or she. It's almost like talking about communist China. It's not quite the same, is it? These are private enterprises. They do still need to run a profit, and they do.
So basically, he's calling over half of America a criminal organization. MAGA is a criminal organization. Really? Is it? Why don't you just go back?
We voted for a bankster. We ain't fooling around. Yeah.
Oh,
go Carney.
There you go. We ain't fooling around. Yeah. Just take a look. You want to see some charts? We can show you some charts if you got some free time, Lightning Rod. And this is the thing. Liberals allow themselves to be manipulated by this kind of nonsense, absolute nonsense, right? But anyway, the Israeli ambassador says relations, we should just ignore him for here. But you can keep chatting because in CBC, they wouldn't let you talk there, Lightning Rod. You know what I mean? You're not allowed to comment. So there you go. We allow freedom of speech as long as you don't get nasty with anybody. You can chirp all you want. Israeli ambassador says relations with Canada have deteriorated since Carney became PM. We have seen that. Actually, Netanyahu has called Carney out several times. But Carney did, in the last couple of days, support Donald Trump's, the criminal organization, according to the Lightning Rod, Trump's plan on a solution for the Gaza war there.
It's really sad though, that, isn't it? I mean, we should take note here. This ambassador, an ambassador to this country from supposedly our ally, has knocked on the door, tried to have a conversation about something that affects them profoundly, and just been ignored. That's kind of, it's not the best way to behave, really, is it?
This is a little bit of a health thing. They got, I guess maybe that's a criminal organization too, MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again. But Canada might need MAHA here because a majority of Canadians now overweight or obese. Is that you, Lightning Rod? Are you part of that? The vast majority of Canadians are overweight, according to data released by Stats Canada this morning. The agency said 68% of people aged 18 to 79 are classed as overweight or obese, up from 60% in the years before. And a lot of that is the food that people are eating. The dyes, the fast food. Like, I mean, the McDonald's hamburger, it's you know, like if you want something to stick around in your cupboard, you don't even have to refrigerator. You just put it in the cupboard. It's good. It's good weeks later.
Have you seen that? I don't know. I'm maybe going to make a fool of myself here. It might have been AI, but I saw a video recently where somebody poured like lava, you know, like molten rock onto a Big Mac, and it was quite a surprising outcome. It was impervious to the lava. But I mean, if that was AI, then I'm sorry, McDonald's Incorporated. But you know, there are so many funny videos of people doing things to McDonald's food. Like somebody left a Big Mac meal with the fries and everything in, I don't know what it was, but in some sort of box, and left it there for like a year, or maybe it was longer than that. And it was still going strong. I mean, very, very interesting. But I love McDonald's. Please send me McDonald's.
I just watched. Yeah, I know you like McDonald's. I like it too. I go there every now and then, and then I regret it, and then I go again, and then I regret it, and I go again. But it's usually it's months between. And I just watched a YouTube video this morning from the guy that wants to live forever. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he went there.
I know who you mean.
And he got everything. Like he just got the full menu, and then he broke it all down, and you know, showing you like their breakfast one, I think, with the hotcakes and a muffin and a hash brown there. I think like over 1,000 calories in that little little package there, right?
Wow.
Absolutely crazy.
I used to go and I used to get so much in my younger days. I used to get 20 chicken nuggets, and I used to get a cheeseburger from the value menu just on the side there, and large fries. And sometimes I'd even get a large milkshake. I mean, that must be like 4,000 calories, 5,000 calories. Oh. But yeah, not advising that, but maybe nibble on a chicken nugget now and then. That's a good way to go.
Do you know what the Liberal government has counted on, and lots of parties have counted on, Democratic Party, including the Republicans and the Conservatives, is useful idiots, right? They got these people out there they kind of like bring them into their cult, and then they become like useful idiots for the party. And meanwhile, the people in charge steal like bandits. The reason a lot of people don't like Trump is because like the Republicans and the Democrats are kind of like one party if you look at the Bush era, the Biden era, and all that kind of stuff. The problem with Trump is that he won't be bought. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of just says what he wants, right? And I don't think he's trusted by anyone. And I think a lot of people say that about us. We kind of say mean things about the Conservatives and the Liberals, and they're just like, this is not a, pumping anybody's tires. Maybe Elon Musk's tires. We pump his tires every now and then. Although you don't, but anyway. Well, let's listen in on your friend here.
I admire him, obviously, but I hold him to the same standard as I would anyone else. But by the way, we kind of like just went over that. Statistics Canada said 68% of adults in Canada between 2022 and 2024 were either obese or overweight. Just as Elon Musk would say, let that sink in. That's more than 2/3 of the adult population in this country are fat, basically. Let's just say it as it is.
I know nurses.
Tragedy.
I know nurses, and I know quite a few nurses that coached hockey and ringette for a long time. And then a lot of those girls ended up being nurses. And they'll tell you, when you walk through the hospital wards, guess what it's full of? People that are severely overweight, that have heart disease, diabetes, and all these different things that come with being obese. The number one thing you can do for helping your health is eat better, eat healthier, eat healthier. That's drive by McDonald's, drive by. They're charging you $9 for a drink. That's basically a glass of sugar. You don't need it. You don't need it. Just stop. Anyway, let's listen in on Keir Starmer, the infamous Keir Starmer.
Bills are going up again. And you promised breakfast viewers just before the election campaign that you would be the Prime Minister who brought those bills down. Are you going to be able to keep that promise?
Yes, it's a really important promise. And already what we're doing is bringing the bills down by £150 for millions of households with the scheme that we are running. So that is really important as a start. But there's a bigger challenge, which is we have to get the bills down for those at home and actually for businesses as well. And I've made it absolutely clear that all the policies that we need in order to bring those bills down need to be pursued, because for many people, they're one of the biggest household bills, and for businesses, the energy costs are a constant feature.
You mentioned the help for poorer families, but when you made that promise during the election, you were talking about all people, and you put a figure on it. You talked about trying to bring down families' energy bills by up to £300 a year. In fact, since you entered Downing Street, they've gone up by nearly £200 a year. So there's no way you're going to be able to stick to that promise, is there?
Bringing down the bills by 150 is for a number of households, millions of households.
What about the 300?
But I'm not riling against your challenge, which is that we need to bring all of these bills down, and putting the policies in place to do that is really important to me personally. That's the commitment I made. Obviously, a large part of this is driven by what's happening in Ukraine. Bills are 75% higher because of the conflict in Ukraine.
But that had happened before you made that
promise. Well, I appreciate that. So what we need to do is to work with others to resolve the situation in Ukraine, to work again on the £150 we're bringing off bills, and to do more, and to meet your challenge, to ensure that we are able to bring those bills down, which is the commitment that I made.
OK, so just to be absolutely clear, you are still sticking to that £300 promise?
I want to bring energy bills down significantly for families by the next election. And that's
by £300?
Well, yes, £300 is the amount we put out there, but I know the commitment I made, and I'm determined we're going to bring those bills down because I know what an impact they've had on people struggling to make ends meet and living through what must seem like a continuous and continuing cost of living crisis.
Bills are
So he goes on to say it's £500 altogether then. And you know, you've been there. You were just back there. You tried to go back to jolly old England. King Arthur, again, would stick that sword back in the stone and say, I'm done. Like, I don't need this, right?
Yeah, it's like, can you imagine having to deal with that every day? Like, as an English peasant, British peasant, looking at that, just like, please, I just want to turn the radiator on. I just want to be warm.
Share your story again, because you're like, you know, like an average UK citizen in the UK, and you know, both you and your wife have professional. You actually worked for the government there, and you're making decent money, both you and your wife, and you had to choose when you turn your bloody heat on.
Yep, and it ended up being very short period of time. I'm not sure Canadians can understand. I mean, maybe there are some out there that know what this is like.
Hey, they might understand sooner than you think.
This is what will happen if it's net zero. If net zero is pursued aggressively as it is being in Britain, then yeah. Although the British do, they suffer because they don't have hydro, whereas in BC there, in Quebec, in Ontario also benefits from it. Got this delicious, reliable hydro. Unless somebody destroys the dams, right? There's always that sort of base level. Whereas the British, obviously, if you know your history, they used to rely on coal, and coal is the number one devil on the planet right now, isn't it? So they just got rid of all their coal plants. They literally blew them up. And then they started to move over to wind power as the great sort of hero. And, it's not really that good, is it? Frankly, it hasn't worked out. That thing, to hear him at the end there, where he said, it's such a funny line, where he said, it must seem to people like it's a never-ending cost of living crisis. I just find that so interesting. It must seem, because obviously it's not for him.
Yeah.
Downing Street always has the heat on, it's like these, and he's been like a pretty sort of expensive and successful lawyer most of his life. So he has no idea what he's inflicted on the British people. It's a completely abstract concept to him.
The rhetoric that the Liberals will put out there, I said I wasn't going to answer any more of this lightning round, but here I will. Because he said, just a simple question for your channel. Any thoughts on what Canadians should do to climate change? Because that's their number one thing, right? Well, here you go. Here's my answer. I have solar on my roof, had for a couple of years. I drive a Tesla. I believe Teslas are the best cars in the world. And I absolutely believe it. I believe in nuclear energy. I believe that there's a better path forward. But I also believe in Norway. Norway, what they've done, they've lifted up their citizens, use the oil and gas to build a better future. They have, I think it's 95% actually on EV adoption. They have like some of the cleanest energy going. So yeah, there is no right or wrong answer, lightning rod. There is a better way. That's what there is, a better way where we don't have to push our people into poverty and have elitists like Keir Starmer and Mark Carney, like living high on the hog, while the rest of the population has to like not eat, not be able to provide for their children, not be able to heat their homes. So yeah, so stop bringing up this climate change like that. This is the reason, like Justin Trudeau says, where you can't pay your rent, suck it up. You can't afford food, suck it up. that there's a bigger battle going on while they fly around in their jets. So yeah, so everybody's created equal, and everybody should have an equal opportunity for prosperity. Yes, there are better ways. And like I said, I believe everybody should drive a Tesla. There is no better thing out there. And Norway is one of the best civilizations out there. And how did they get there? Oil and gas. That's a fact.
Well, and hydro, that didn't hurt.
Yeah.
I do find
but I'm
it
saying
funny
they
though
sell
that,
it, right?
yeah,
That's it for
the
the lightning
bread
rod,
and
though,
butter.
right? Yeah.
I'm very interested in Mr. Lightning Rod now. I know we said we were going to ostracize him, weren't we? But now he's back. He's back in the fold. He says that offshore wind is one of the most successful industries of the 21st century.
Good one.
You said earlier that you were going to give us evidence. Can I have some evidence for that?
Good one.
Can you explain why is it so heavily subsidized then? I'm sure you know all about it in Britain. Clearly, you're an expert. Why is it so extravagantly subsidized by the British taxpayer? Why is it that the British government tried to auction off its latest round of wind energy and nobody bid? Nobody, not a single bidder came forward. If it's so successful and great and it's just like a money tree, wouldn't people be, falling over themselves to put wind turbines
You should
up?
have it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And here's and this guy. This is a typical liberal democratic kind of like reaction to Elon Musk. And listen to this. And this guy tries to explain how stupid Elon Musk is. Let's listen in on him. Isn't this your buddy here, actually? Milliband. Yeah, there you go.
How is it?
Are you happy with Elon Musk? Are you an Elon Musk fan?
You know
like
why?
him?
You know why Elon Musk terrifies you, and you call it disinformation? Because it's speech you cannot control. That's it. You can't control, although you're trying. Listen, with the online safety
You think he's a Democrat?
you are trying.
You think he believes in democracy?
Do you believe in democracy?
Well, obviously I do, but...
How do you believe? Did people vote for the digital ID? Did people vote for the online safety bill? No, you don't believe in democracy. You don't believe in Brexit.
Elon Musk.
You want it over
Do you think Elon Musk
is not elected official. I want the leader of
But
this
are you a
country
fan
to
of
believe
him?
in democracy.
Are you a fan of him?
I'm a fan for anyone that protects free speech. Yes, I am a fan of him. He is a genius. Have you thought what he's brought to...
I think he's an idiot. I think he doesn't understand...
He's an idiot.
I don't think he understands our political
Someone who's
system
created
at all.
SpaceX and Tesla is an idiot. Is an idiot.
They keep blowing up. He's wiped millions off the share price of his own
Labour
company.
cabinet member who's achieved...
I think he's an absolute danger to himself and others.
In what sense? I'll tell you what's a danger. Is a corrupt Labour Party. Is a corrupt Labour Party that's... Yes, because you're running a country. I'll tell you what's a danger. Is you trying to chip away our freedoms bit by bit with the online safety bill, the digital ID, under the guise of safety.
I don't believe he actually thinks in democracy.
You know, the problem is that the establishment used to control what we see in here. Now we have X, and that terrifies people like you. It terrifies. No, he's not. You are the establishment. Your party is the establishment. And actually, people are waking up to they've been lied to the whole time, and that terrifies your.
How come we don't have reporters like that? Here's GB News, right? We don't. Have you ever seen anybody get access to an MP like that in Canada and get to go to town like that? They would just storm out.
She's not. She's not actually a reporter. She's a politician.
Mm.
But GB News, it often has these. They're not like news segments. They're like talk segments, and they do employ a lot of politicians to host them. Like Nigel Farage, he's got a show on there. Mm. But it's also, we talked about this before. I think it's British culture, specifically English culture, to have these kind of quite strong debates with each other, and that's just the truth. That doesn't really exist in Canada. Canada's, as David Eby said, polite, very polite, and you don't have conversations like that in Canada by and large, do you? I mean, you've been here your whole life. You know as well as I do. It doesn't often end up like this, does it? A conversation about whatever, politics or something like that. It's usually much more, it's a lot softer and friendly and more polite.
Would be a word, or just like they wouldn't. But yeah. I mean, this guy is like AOC in the United States. To say Elon Musk is an idiot, it's just it's an insult to someone's intelligence. Like, look at what he's done. He has the leading companies in the leading industries in the world, and he says, "Oh, SpaceX keeps blowing up." Literally, like a fact check for the SpaceX. I think it's like the numbers, like it's astronomical. Like I think 100 to 1. Everybody else combined on launches a year.
But that's also just, I'm sorry to say it, but that's like loser talk. That's what a loser would say. Yeah. They'd say, "Oh, it always fails." Name me a business now that's extremely successful that didn't fail loads of times. I mean, Amazon. How long did it take for Amazon to turn a profit? I don't think they turned a profit till like 2015 or something like that. Like, obviously, to do anything, to build anything, to create anything, you've just got to fail again and again and again and again and again.
Hey.
And if this guy is talking like that, there's a reason that we don't know who he is.
Miliband, is that his name? Miliband? Miliband?
That's not Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband was the guy yesterday who was saying, Elon Musk, and talking about the evil Elon octopus.
So Tesla reported today, 497,000 cars sold in the quarter. The number one selling car, not electric car, the number one selling car last year in the world was Tesla's Model Y. So, I mean, for a terrible guy that's an idiot, he's done pretty good. The only successful auto manufacturer that's launched out of nothingness in the past 50 years that's profitable is Tesla. It's Tesla. Their market cap dwarfs almost all the automakers combined. Tesla. SpaceX is the leading space company in the world. Like, absolutely in the world. Starlink is the largest global communications company in the world. Ukraine's using it. Like, everybody uses it. Starlink. It's on like almost all airlines right now. So to say he's an idiot is just, it's an insult to the people that eat this stuff like pablum from the liberals, Democrats and stuff, where they just spew this absolute nonsense. It's an insult to their intelligence. And these useful idiots go out and propagate it because they don't understand, right? And the same as Canada. We vilified Musk, who has Canadian heritage.
Well, the thing is, they've tried to process him through
Here's just a second.
Political lens, haven't they?
Elon didn't build Tesla. He bought Tesla, just like he bought everything. That's an absolute mistruth there. Elon, when he joined Tesla, the guy was falling apart, right? They hadn't even launched the Roadster at that point. They hadn't even launched the Roadster at that point. And he got rid of the guy ended up giving too much shares to Elon, and he got taken out because he wasn't. Go read the real story on it. They say he bought Tesla. Yeah, he built Tesla. The Model 3 was the success of Tesla, and that was all Elon Musk. So come on. Like this just nonsense. You just say half-truths, not even a half-truth. Just stop it. Just stop. Anyway.
Saying he's heavily subsidized. I mean, there's some truth to that. Like, he has benefited from a lot of subsidies. But that's true of a lot of innovative companies. That's not unique to Elon Musk. You have to remember that.
Yeah. Let's actually move on to the BC news here because we're running out of time. We're running a little late again here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Lots of moves there from John Rustad here. Macklin McCall has been given Eleanor Sturco's old job, so Macklin gets that critic role, and then Gavin Dew loses some responsibilities in the Rustad reshuffle there, as he's, McCall. Macklin McCall will be in the studio here at, I think we have Macklin in at 1 o'clock. So if you want to listen to what Macklin McCall has to say, we're going to have him in here. He's going to talk about his new duties, and he's also talking about the stuff that's going on with crime across Canada. And then Harman Bangu, the former transport critic, has been given half a Dew's previous job, and he'll be the critic for jobs and economic development. So a lot of critic roles there. Like, holy cow, I don't even go through the list. I'm sure we'll have this up on Kelowna Now later today, but a lot of critic roles there.
You can't help but think that this is purely speculation. I don't have inside info, but this is maybe John Rustad kind of chopping down the tall poppies, so to speak, because Gavin Dew, like Eleanor Sturco, was a former BC Liberal, and like Eleanor Sturco, was making a lot of noise and getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And now he's a smaller poppy, and John Rustad remains the giant towering sunflower that looks down on the BC Conservative caucus.
We've interviewed Harman Bangu in the past. I think he's also a tall poppy, but I think maybe they gave him something just to kind of keep that poppy in check.
I think he's a very loyal poppy.
But he's pointing out a few things, and he's actually very, very sharp guy, actually. And he says 2 mansions in Burnaby, both drug labs tied to Chinese crime families. This Sam Cooper does great work. Police found pill presses, meth, MDMA, cannabis grows. These homes are financed by Canada's biggest banks. Imagine that, eh? Well, Canadians struggle to buy. The TD Bank was actually busted, and they paid billions of dollars in fines for money laundering too. They got charged in the United States. So,
I mean, there's few of them were in on that, weren't they? I mean, it's a big scandal, that, isn't it? Especially Vancouver, which for so long has been kind of like the HQ of this sort of.
And we've covered this story quite a bit too, and we've tried to get more stuff out of the CVSE. We got basically nothing, but here it is again: a semi-driver detained for impaired driving after a crash that closed BC Highway. Look at this. Like, these people are driving 50-ton vehicles. And we've seen so many accidents now where, and we've also seen some investigative reporting where we're showing that they're handing out licenses just for cash money licenses. And I think in Ontario, they're making a few people take their license again. We're seeing it happening in California too, where they were handing out licenses to people, because in the United States, you have to be able to speak English to get a license. And that one in that Florida crash that killed 3 people, basically decapitated 3 people in Florida on a turnpike there. And that person couldn't even identify 2 of 12 signs or something. I couldn't speak English. Like, these people are driving massive, like, and I watched another accident where a car was parked behind a semi-truck and another semi-truck came in behind it and hit it and basically just accordioned the car, right? I mean, you don't have a chance, right? There's nothing, right? It doesn't matter what you're in.
Mm. Well, lest we forget the hockey players as well. That wasn't really that long ago, was it?
Blew through a stop sign in Saskatchewan, killing, so many people on that bus. This is a 66-year-old man behind the wheel of a semi, was detained at the scene for impaired driving. It's lucky that it was just that he just hit, like, like it wiped out his truck as opposed to taking a bunch of people with him.
Yeah. I mean, they are such lethal instruments, aren't they?
Yeah, and then this is again has a lot to do with like in California and in the case in Ontario there. Did we just freeze again? Did we lose Ian? No, he's back.
I can still hear you.
There you go.
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here. But I mean, this is something that's serious. We've seen in Ontario too, where there's you go back through our history and you can see that where they were giving out licenses for cash money. So, but that's our show for today. It's a long one, actually. I guess we got too distracted with the lightning rod guy there.
Which couldn't resist arguing with people on YouTube.
Right, but at least we're willing to converse. Whereas if you go on CBC, they won't let you converse lightning rod. That's it, right? So.
Well, he might be able to, but somebody that disagreed strongly with the CBC line wouldn't be able to.
No. Anyway, that's our show for today. Come back tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday, last day of the week, apparently, October 3rd tomorrow. If interesting times for sure. We do thank you, and I'm back at 1 o'clock with Macklin McCall, a Conservative MLA that is now taking over Eleanor Sturco's critic role. Right, he's a former RCMP member himself, as is.
He's
Eleanor.
now Big Mac, you might say.
The Big Mac, yeah, the Big Mac. All right, we got the Big Mac coming in at. And that story, you got to go read that one, or like when it gets up there on the economic winter that Canada is heading into. It's going to be a good one. All right. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.